Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another week of Women to Watch. I'm Sue Rocco. So great to be back every week. Joining me in just a few moments will be Sonita Lontoh. And Sonita is a board member for SunRun and TrueBlue. And we're going to be learning all about her former corporate career and how she really kind of bucked the system in landing these public company board spots. At the end of the show, you'll hear from Sherry Morrison, our Lifestyle Watch contributor. And Sherry's going to be with Deborah Minchef. Deborah's the founder of The Artful Pen. As always, to learn more about the show and see who's coming up, visit our website at womentowatch.net. That's women, the number 2, watch.net, N-E-T. So now I'm very honored and thrilled to welcome to the show, Sonita. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sue. It's an honor.
Remind us where you're joining us from. Where are you?
Today, I'm actually joining from sunny Las Vegas. So,
Las Vegas.
Yeah. So since January of this year, so I've been splitting my time between San Francisco, where I've been for the past 30 years, and Las Vegas.
Very nice. Well, and actually, I wanted to start off with your where you were born, which was Indonesia.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can talk about the community there for a couple of minutes. What was that like?
Great question, and thanks for asking. Yeah, so I'm originally from Jakarta, Indonesia. It's a big city, about 12 million people. And actually, many people may not realize it. You know, Indonesia is actually the world's 4th largest country with about 275 million people and 17,000 islands. And so I grew up in a very diverse environment. I had family members and friends, from different ethnicities and religious backgrounds. And looking back, I would say probably this upbringing, without me realizing it, had enabled me to develop a more diverse and global perspective.
Mm. Okay, tell me about your parents and how they impacted the choices that you've made throughout your life.
Mm-hmm. So my parents, they're successful business owners, and they for them, growing up, I felt like they instilled in me the importance of education and resilience. And growing up, Sue, I actually really looked up to my mother because she was a little bit ahead of her time. She was, a female, a minority, and Indonesian society is still primarily male dominated, especially in business and in leadership position. And despite all that, she was able to actually build a pretty successful business together with my dad. Okay. And, she's a very hardworking, disciplined, accomplished business person, and very strict, so I was growing up, very disciplined. My dad, he's an engineer and also a business person. He's a little bit more laid back than my mother. And, he had this ability, I would say, to really have the foresight or kind of where the world might be going. And so growing up, kind of like business people, education, discipline, I think it really affected, how I grew up.
Wow. When I think about you, I would say that you have that same gift as your dad about, being futuristic thinking and which may be why you ended up in technology and very much involved in innovation around technology. Was it something you knew at a young age that was the path you wanted to take, or did you just figure that out later?
Yeah, you know what, Sue? I think, hindsight is always 20/20. I don't think at the time I realized that, but I knew I was good in math and science. So actually growing up, I was doing really well academically in math and science. So I knew I wanted to, study that. And also the other thing that I used to do when I was growing up, in junior high and high school, I would always be involved with some kind of school activities, part of the fundraising committee or part of the, end of school year committee. And one highlight that I really remember was this big fundraising activity that we did during my last year in high school, where we, had a big gala at the Central Jakarta Arts and Culture Center, students had performances, and we raised money to help, the underprivileged communities in Jakarta. And I felt really satisfied at that time. And so looking back, I felt that even though I didn't know it at that time, but it seemed like, there were emerging trend where I knew I was good in math and science, but I also like to do activities where I felt that it was making an impact, And so now looking back, I felt that had always been that bent, but I don't think I realized it at the time.
Talk to me a little bit about your confidence and self-esteem when you were a young girl.
I would say I knew I was good academically, of course. I was pretty social, but not too social. I was not part of the cool kind of like kids, in school. But I had confidence that I had the ability to kind of like do schoolwork well, and also be involved and sometimes in leadership capacity, student class presidents and things like that to perhaps gain the trust of my peers, my friends, and other students.
And how old were you when you came to America?
Yeah, I was 18 years old. I came to America by myself to go to college, actually, Sue.
Mhm.
And of course, then I had to learn a new language and a new culture.
Yes.
And I went to many schools, actually, I guess because I like schools. Went to Berkeley for my undergraduate in engineering, and then I went to MIT for my master's in engineering. But then I also wanted to study business, and so I went to Northwestern Kellogg for my MBA. It was really, I think, in graduate schools that I started to develop just a few guiding principles. Like one, I realized, hey, I really love this intersection of new technology, the creation of new business, and even a little bit of policy. And then the second, as I've mentioned, I realized I wanted to work in an area, even technology area, that, there is that contributing factor, making an impact to society. And so after graduation, still wasn't clear what industry or what functional area I would go into, but I really leverage, I would say, these two guiding principles to help me kind of find that intersection of my passion, which is what I love, technology, new businesses, my skills. I'm pretty good in helping to start new businesses, think about new business models that can be enabled by technology, and most importantly, working in technology areas where there is that additionality factor, where the technology is actually helping to make things better.
Did you ever have a desire to be an entrepreneur?
You know what? Believe it or not, I did actually right after college. Had a small uh, um, online game company. It was a little bit ahead of its time, I would say,
Oh, wow.
but we were actually able to grow the user base. Did that for a couple years too, and eventually sold it to a larger competitor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
that's really exciting. Um, so you spent time at HP, Siemens, PG&E. When you look back over those years, I'm guessing there were great lessons that you learned and took away from working for, a large corporation like that. What comes to mind? What would be kind of the top 3 lessons that you took from those companies that you use then in your advising and consulting as a board member?
Great question. Yeah, I've been really fortunate, I would say, to have had those experiences, and I think the differentiating factor, even though you mentioned, very very large, global companies, but my kind of focus, even in those companies, had always been helping these companies to launch new businesses. So, for instance, with HP, I was actually helping to launch their new 3D printing business. HP is not
So
known the
exciting.
3D printing industry, but that's where the new sources of growth would come in the future. So, that was my focus at HP. The same thing with Siemens. Siemens is a large global conglomerate, 180 years. But where I was focusing on was helping them to launch their new digital grid business. Because again, companies know that new sources of growth in the future would probably not come from, where they had been in the past, decades, right? And same with PG&E, I was involved with more of their new smart energy renewable energy initiatives. So of course, there are many lessons learned, Sue, but I would say perhaps from those experiences, three things I think really stick with me. The first, especially I think if you're a leader working in technology, I think you have to be customer focused. And the reason I say that, because I do see tendencies sometimes for brilliant people inventing new things. They're so brilliant, they invent all these new things. But sometimes when they're purely focused on the technology, they can lose sight as to like how that technology is actually helping to solve real customer problems.
Mm.
So I think as a leader, one of the lessons I learned is first you need to start from understanding the customer problems and then work backwards and be able to articulate how your technology solutions actually helping to solve customer problems. I think that's one. And then the second, given all of these areas are new areas, I think the other lesson I learned is to be flexible, to be nimble, because sometimes some of the new businesses that will be enabled by this new technology, you cannot imagine yet. The paradigm is new. So for instance, it's not my business, but Uber is an example of like matching supply and demand in a very new framework. The framework before Uber was taxi. And so if you are not flexible, if you're not open-minded, you cannot see the possibilities. So second is to see the possibilities. And then the third one, Sue, really, this is more of a leadership, lesson learned. I think as we grow, in our leadership journey, we really have to develop other leaders instead of other followers. And throughout my journey, I kind of felt that this really resonated with me. And I read this book or article by John Maxwell, and he says, most people have go through their leadership journey. There are 5 levels of leadership, and most of us start being a positional leader. Basically, people follow us because of our title or because of our position. But that is actually the lowest level of leadership, and that's also the easiest and the least rewarding. And as we grow in our own leadership journey, we know that we have to build trust, credibility, influence, and we have to be intentional and willing to develop other people as leaders. And I found in my experiences that when you have more leaders in the organization, actually more of the organizational goals can be accomplished. And then at the same time, you're truly making an impact, not only to the business, but also to the lives of all the members of your team. So for me personally, throughout this journey, even though I don't think I'm like at the pinnacle of leadership, like what John Maxwell says, the highest level is pinnacle, but this focus of developing others as leaders, becomes more and more important for me.
I love that you said, and I wrote that down, you want to be focused on developing leaders, not followers. And I think that's a very wise frame of mind. It's something interesting in all the years I've been interviewing women leaders. I find sometimes they fall into one of two categories. They fall into leadership simply by, I'll say default, they're doing such a good job that they ultimately land in a leadership role because someone else has recognized their expertise, or they've pursued it. When you think about your own life experience, were you pursuing leadership, or were you just continually doing the job excellent and then offered opportunities?
Yeah, I would say probably a combination of both, Sue. Of course, first and foremost, you do have to deliver, like there's no shortcut, you have to perform, you have to deliver. But there is the formal things, and then there are all these other informal things that you do, that may not be part of your formal job descriptions, where people may notice that, oh, you're spending time to develop these other people who may not even be part of your team to be leaders, and they can be productive as well. And then I think the other thing that helps me, and it's funny because I was doing it as part of my job really, but then now looking back, it turned out that it had helped me to get recognition from the outside world, was I did a lot of thought leadership activities. And what I meant by that, given that a lot of the areas that I had been involved with in the past were new technology, so a lot of my work actually involved in explaining what is this new technology all about? How can it impact and deliver positive benefits for businesses, for consumers, for society? So I did a lot of writings, like I had a lot of publications out there. And it's funny because when I was doing that, I was just doing it because it was part of the job. You have a new technology, you're trying to educate, your customers, policymakers, the society in general about that new technology. But then I think, inadvertently, without me realizing it, that also developed myself as a thought leader in that particular arena, and that helped to get you noticed, by people who may not be inside your companies or may not be inside your immediate community.
Like the White House.
Yes, actually in 2016, it was under President Obama. I think during that time, the White House was very active, I would say, with Silicon Valley, and they had a like global entrepreneurship summit at Stanford, and Obama came and opened it. And one day, I got like an email. I thought it was not real, but it was real, from the office, and said like, "Hey, we would love for you to be part of a panel that talk about how young entrepreneurs from emerging countries could really make an impact by leveraging technology and some of the lessons learned from Silicon Valley." So that was truly an honor.
Very exciting. What was that experience like being, not many of us get to be there and, be a part of a day or a program that's run by the government like that, and be invited by the president. What was that like? What was the most enjoyable part of that?
Oh yeah, well, of course, it was like an event where the president would be at. So the security was very tight. I remember the program actually didn't start until like 9 a.m. And I think we were already lining up at like 6 or 6:30 a.m. because
Oh my
everyone had to
gosh.
be tested. Everyone had to
Yes.
be in their place before he came, and all that, right? So from a security perspective, like, wow, like crazy. I think the experience was what really resonated with me that I didn't expect. It was a global event. There are a lot of young entrepreneurs from emerging countries, from
Mm,
Africa,
mm.
from there's some from Indonesia. I connected with them, and it's really amazing, like how these young entrepreneurs from all these emerging countries, even though you would not think, what I mean, that they had the resources, perhaps,
Mhm.
as we are here in Silicon Valley, to kind of work in the technology area, but many of them were very creative. And so what really resonated with me was, even though they may look at the US or Silicon Valley for the business model, they were very adaptive in adapting that business model to their own local environment in order to make it work. Because the economics, the infrastructure, the political realities in their own countries may be different from the US. So even though, let's say, for an example, e-commerce entrepreneurs, so they look at how successful, a company like Amazon is in the United States. So they felt like, hey, there's an opportunity for them to also like start a company that focus on e-commerce in their own country. But the logistics, let's say, in their own country is not the same as in the United States. The payment system is not the same as in the United States. So they adapted all these things to still have an e-commerce business, but it
Mm.
was very tailored towards their own local environment. And I felt like, wow, that was really eye-opening for me. And a lot of these entrepreneurs actually shared about those experiences at the event.
Yeah, it's so impressive to me, the age of some of these entrepreneurs and how they have the confidence to go pursue something, often without much experience. They just believe in something. I love to
Yes,
see that. Yeah,
totally.
we're going to go into our first break. If you're listening on 1210, you'll hear from our watch team members, and I will be right back with Sonita Lontoh.
Action News, celebrating 50 years with AccuWeather.
The heat is on. In 2010, Philadelphia had a record of 55 days at or over 90 degrees. And those scorchers, they're on the rise. In fact, 10 of the 15 hottest summers occurred in the last 2 decades. Thank you for always trusting us to keep you informed.
You're streaming and we're streaming. Get the AccuWeather forecast and severe storm alerts 24/7 on our 6ABC streaming app.
Whether you're just getting started, already well on your way, planning for your future, drafting your vision, growing toward greatness, or finding that dreams really can come true. Whatever your next steps are, we'll be right here with you, just like we have been for 150 years. Start here, grow here, stay here. Penn Community Bank. Here we grow.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News
The
live,
big story on Action News tonight.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. I'm Sue Rocco, and you're watching Women to Watch, and I'm joined this week by Sonita Lontoh. Sonita is a board director with SunRun and TrueBlue. Sonita, I wanted to start this segment talking about something that I think is really new in business and really throughout the world that wasn't necessarily focused on years ago, and that's that people are looking for meaning and purpose in their careers and in their jobs. And I would say particularly women in technology are more active when they know that something they're doing has meaning and purpose. So how are companies addressing this kind of demand?
Oh, great question, Sue. And you know what? I actually wrote a Forbes article about this 10 years ago. I said, women are more likely to stay in a technology career if they feel that they're making a difference. And the funny thing is, when you look around today, I think it's even more true today, And, I have experienced this, time and time again in my previous kind of executive roles. But I think the challenge right now with companies, especially in this new environment, after the pandemic, is that many women, I would say, during the pandemic realized that, there are many new challenges that they had to face that, they may not have realized before, such as because of the pandemic or after the pandemic, they may have to take care of the elderly, who got sick at home, have to help with their children because their children are doing school from home, and then they themselves are working from home where the boundaries can sometimes blur. And unfortunately, Sue, some women have, had to quit their job because they felt that they have to prioritize their families. But what I've seen is when companies are being intentional and willing in giving this, all their workforce, actually not just women, but in particular women, the flexibility and the trust, that they would actually get the job done, perhaps on their own time because they may not have the same schedules as you, that these women would actually stay and thrive, So I think the challenge actually in the new world is, is to encourage companies to be more intentional in designing a hybrid workforce environment where they can have a flexible, work environment, but still be prudent, that people can still be productive, to encourage, more women not to quit their jobs, but to stay in a job. And, at the board level, this, kind of flexible hybrid work environment and how it's affecting, women in the work a place, which I would say is part of ESG and DEI, will become more and more important as we move forward.
Sunita, I'm curious your opinion. If you think, is there an actual strategy for getting more women into leadership positions, or do you think it's more a matter of helping them to believe they can?
Yes, I think it's all of those things. And I would actually answer that question, Sue, from both the supply side and the demand side. And I will, in particular, focus on technology just because that's the area that I know best. And what I meant by that is from the supply side, I would say that we as a society, parents, teachers, everyone, we have to encourage more women to actually study math and science from a young age. I think girls need to know that to be good in math and science is cool and not just for the boys,
Yeah.
And I think in addition to that, also women need role models who are good in math and science, both the aspirational role models. And what I meant by that is women who are, C-suite, board members, Nobel Prize winners, those are all great. But you also need role models who are practical. And what I meant by that is people who are just 1 to 2 steps ahead of you. So, if you're like a college student, female college student engineering, you do need role models who are, successful female professionals, you know what I mean, who just, maybe 2-3 years, ahead of you. You need those role models. And then from the demand side, and what I meant by demand is from companies, I think companies need to be very intentional in not only hiring, but more importantly, in retaining and developing their high potential female leaders. And what I meant by this is it has to be part of the company's DNA. So it has to have the sponsorship, the championship, the budget, all the way from the CEO, get the support of all the executive leadership team, and ensuring that these leadership programs for high potential women are actually integrated into their overall company program. So it's not just on the fringes, just a feel-good thing, but it's actually truly integrated into their program. So to answer your question, I think it's both. I mean, of course, as women, we do have to have the confidence. We do have to know that we're good enough. But also, I think from a societal perspective, from the company side, there has to be also an intention to actually hire, retain, and develop high potential women.
One of the things, again, that is impressive with your professional career is the fact that you landed these 2 positions, and probably there's more to come. Being on a public company board, which is typically male, former C-suite, executives. And so I wanted to ask you, how did you do it? And are you hopeful that we're moving closer to a more level arena where there will be half men, half women on these boards, which ideally will be best?
Yes, that is a great question. So just to share some statistics, so the numbers are actually not that encouraging, but it's improving. So I read a study recently that said today, women comprise of only about 8% of Fortune 500 CEOs and only about 18% of Fortune 1000 board members. So, numbers are still small,
Right.
but the good news is these are actually improvements from the past. So
Yes.
at least we know, that's good, but you and I know, there's still a lot of work to do here. Maybe I can just share a little bit about my own board journey, and of course, too, I know what board members are, but I never actually thought too much about it. But about 5 years ago, I was still an executive at Siemens at the time. I got a call from one of the major recruiting firms, and they said, hey, like a large publicly listed energy company is interested to talk to you for a potential board position. But what made me kind of like, oh, that's interesting, was they said that they had seen, again, some of my work talking about how technology have the ability to help, big legacy companies, perhaps such as this, large energy company, to transform the way they do business. And they told me that, these days, a lot of companies are dealing with new issues. Of course, companies still have to perform financially, still have to deliver for their shareholders and stakeholders, but there are all these new emerging issues, such as digital transformation, such as finding new sources of growth. ESG is becoming more and more important, cybersecurity. And I felt that from that experience, even though it was just, one small example, I felt like, wow, so perhaps the kind of skill sets that they are looking now, is different from the skill sets, the traditional skill sets of former CEOs and former CFOs of public companies in the past. And don't get me wrong, of course, you still need, those expertise on the boardrooms. But because of these new emerging issues, I think there are opportunities now for people, to be considered for board positions who may not be former CEOs or CFOs of public companies.
Yeah, it's always, that's ultimately the reason we talk so much about diversity and inclusion, is to have these different perspectives are so important. I wanted to talk to you about the fact that this is really a new chapter for you,
Yes.
to be advising as opposed to being in the thick of the day-to-day at a company. What are you most enjoying about this new chapter? And is there anything you kind of miss from your former life?
Oh, yeah. Great question. So I have just started this new chapter not too long ago, Sue, about 5 months ago. And so very new, truly enjoying it so far, but really learning a lot, because the role of a board member is really that of governance, and what I mean by that is you oversee, you guide, you advise, but you don't manage. And actually in board parlance, there is this saying, nose in, fingers out. You have to be curious, you have to ask, you have to make sure, the company is on the right track, but you're not meddling with, the day-to-day, because that is truly the role of management. So I'm still learning, about that. And of course, you have to be very careful, because I actually joined both boards when I was still an executive at HP, and I was fortunate. HP was very supportive with that. But I think for people like me who are kind of like new, in this new chapter, we just have to be very mindful that our role is more of a oversight and governance, and not of day-to-day management. But I think what I really also enjoy personally, I think being a board member give you an opportunity to be able to coach, advise, and develop, others as leaders. Of course, the most immediate is just the management teams of the companies that you are on the board of. And I really enjoy that. One of the roles of board members is actually to participate in leadership development, including the evaluation and succession planning for the CEO, in determining the right compensation for executives, including the CEO, and also in providing oversight for talent management, and to help, kind of set the tone for the culture, at the top, to ensure that the company has the right culture that is aligned with the company's strategies and mission and values. And I think I really enjoy that part, of being a board member.
Can I ask you, when you think about what you're most proud of when you look back, and I would say both professionally and personally, on your life so far, because you're just at the beginning of a whole second half?
Yeah, I would say, so I'm most proud of, maybe I will divide it into just two big buckets, So the first bucket is professional accomplishments, but I'm most proud of when I experienced that the kind of technology areas that I was involved in was really making an impact or a difference. So maybe one example I could share with you that happened not too long ago, Sue. I was still an executive at HP in their 3D printing business. We just launched, the new business. We were really busy in growing the business. And then all of a sudden the pandemic happened. And, pandemic happened, lots of uncertainties, lots of chaos. And if you remember, Sue, there were a lot of supply chain disruptions around the world, where people around the world could not get, healthcare equipments, because of supply chain, right? In China was shut down. And during that time, I was so proud that, our teams at HP, together with our customers and partners around the world, we quickly actually rallied and, designed and produced more than 5 million mission critical applications, including face masks, face shields, ventilators and respirator parts, nasal swabs, and,
Wow.
we did that, quickly. And it's funny because for the longest time, people in the 3D printing industry have always talked about this potential of this technology to enable distributed manufacturing. And what I meant by that is, you can manufacture as you need it, where you need it. And
Mhm.
that moment really provided, the perfect opportunity to prove, that that technology could do that. And we were actually truly helping healthcare workers around the world, to help battle COVID-19. So I was very proud of that moment. And I could also see, the people on the teams, it was very satisfying for us. And then the second one, from a more personal perspective, I think I'm most proud. I'm also mentoring and, sponsoring other people, especially young women entrepreneurs over the years. And some of them, without mentioning names, actually have become pretty successful themselves. They started companies, created jobs, for their communities. Some actually became policymakers now, and they, try to work on some policies that are delivering benefits for society. And it's very, I'm, kind of proud that I have a little contribution in helping, some of these young women achieve their full potential.
I love that. That's something to be very, very proud of, because as you said at the very top of the show, we should always be thinking about how to help develop others as opposed to just building a mass of followers, people that admire. That has no meaning,
Yeah, I think it is especially important, especially in this day and age where, with social media, even
Yes.
Twitter, right? We're like, oh, these are our followers. I mean, sure. I mean, I
And we
understand.
don't know any of them. These people
Exactly,
don't
but
know
we
us
don't know
and we
them
don't know them.
personally.
Yeah,
They don't know us
right.
personally. So I think especially in the age of social media, it's important for us to still have, like the real life. We live in a real world, not in a social media world. I mean, sure, that's part of it. You can share your thoughts that way and all that. It can reach a lot of people, but I think it's still very important to live in the real world and do good things in your real life.
Yeah. I'd love to know where you go in stressful times. Is there a mantra, a motto, something that you live by that you say to yourself when things are kind of feeling out of control?
Yeah. First of all, I don't do kind of special thing, to relieve stress or anything like that. I'm trying to go to the gym more often now, trying to, like take classes and things like that. But I think one thing that helped me during difficult times is just to remember that life is a journey. It's not a destination, and it's a long journey, right? And so, whatever our challenges are, it's usually temporary. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you have experienced that too, right? Like when we were in the thick of it, we thought like, oh my God, this is like so bad, or it's the end of the world and all that. But as we learn, as we continue to grow in our journey, we know that's not true. It's usually
Yes.
temporary.
Yes.
Usually we can learn and grow from it, truly, like maybe while the crisis is happening, you cannot see clearly, but afterwards you can, if you take the time to step back and reflect and learn from it, you can actually grow from it. And I think just remember that, life is a journey, it's not a destination. We want to learn and grow from it and, be grateful. And usually when I'm grateful, I feel better. And, be generous. And usually that's true too. When you're being generous, usually you're going to feel better as well.
Yeah. That's a perfect way to end the show. I thank you so much, Sonita, for sharing your professional journey and your personal journey. And I wish you continued success.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue, for having me.
Stay with us. And when we come back, you'll hear from Sherry Morrison, and she'll be with Deborah Minchef, the founder of The Artful Pen. We'll be right back.
Action News, celebrating 50 years with AccuWeather.
The heat is on. In 2010, Philadelphia had a record of 55 days at or over 90 degrees, and those scorchers, they're on the rise. In fact, 10 of the 15 hottest summers occurred in the last 2 decades. Thank you for always trusting us to keep you informed.
You're streaming and we're streaming. Get the AccuWeather forecast and severe storm alerts 24/7 on our 6ABC streaming app.
Whether you're just getting started, already well on your way, planning for your future, drafting your vision, growing toward greatness, or finding that dreams really can come true. Whatever your next steps are, we'll be right here with you, just like we have been for 150 years. Start here, grow here, stay here. Penn Community Bank. Here we grow.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch action news live,
The big story on Action News tonight.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
I'm Sherry Morrison, and welcome to the lifestyle segment of Women to Watch. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Deborah Minchef. Deborah is president of Les Dames d'Escoffier International and founder, calligrapher, and designer of the Artful Pen. Welcome to the show, Deborah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Deborah has covered many different genres of the food and hospitality industry. I think the two of us have a lot in common. I love that she has taken her creative juices, experiences, and skills and turned them into her career, passion, and lifestyle. Deborah, please tell us a little bit about where you're from and your education.
Okay, so I was born and bred in Brooklyn, New York, in a wonderful Jewish Italian neighborhood. I was brought up with 2 parents and a brother who I never got along with until I was about 40 years old. We were a family that was very, very tight-knit. I went to public school, I went to Brooklyn College, and then I got a master's from New York University.
That's all in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, I mean, I branched out of Brooklyn when I met my husband, who is Belgian, and I went immediately into Manhattan, where I have lived with my husband ever since.
So you're still there. You must love it.
I'm a city girl.
I love that. I'm a country bumpkin. I enjoy hearing about each of our paths in life. And, and I think it's funny how we all finally get around to doing something that we love or hope to get around to doing something that we love. You've dabbled in all sorts of things and take away skills and pieces that you find value. You taught 5th grade for 10 years. Then you worked at Tavern on the Green for free and learned quite a bit about garde-manger. And for those of you who are not familiar with garde-manger term, it is the handler of cold food, presentation, and is in charge of usually a lot of the garnishes that are on your plates or on buffets. The person that takes a pineapple and turns it into a peacock, or a tomato and turns it into a rose, Deborah, please tell us about this experience and how it led you to your next stepping stones.
Yes. Well, it was an eye-opener. What happened was I decided after 10 years I did not want to teach anymore because it was no longer a challenge for me. And I like challenges. And I took a course in cold banquet food, garde manger, and the chef said, hey, you can come and work for free on Saturdays. And I went running. And after doing that for about 6 months, he offered me a job, and I quit teaching and went to work there, where I learned the basic skills of cutting, turning mushrooms, turning tomatoes into roses, boning ducks, carving, working with aspic, piping. It was heaven. It was all about process, and I am all about process. And after doing that for a year, I thought, I need to try something else. So I thought test kitchen in a magazine. So I basically hounded all of the food editors at all of the magazines in New York until one of them, I think, just got tired of hearing me on the other end of the phone and said, come in and we'll give you a chance to test baking recipes for the Christmas issue. And if you are as good a baker as you say you are, we will hire you. And that's what happened. So, it's the same old story. Once you're let in the door, you then use that to say, hey, guess what? I already did this. So then somebody else is willing to take the chance and hire you. So I did that for a few years, then decided, I need something more challenging. Food stylist. That's the person, whenever you see a beautiful photograph of food, whether it's Burger King or a box of Post cereal or any food in the magazine, it's a food stylist who shops, prepares, cooks, plates the food in a photography studio. It is amazingly challenging. It's very exciting. You have no opportunity to mess up. You have to be a success every day. So it's a challenge every day. And I love that. I did that for 15 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's funny. We had a conversation a couple of days ago about food stylists. I did some of that as well for a salad company that purchased my company. And it was a bit of a challenge making potato salad or tuna salad look exciting and different. They had different types of tuna salad or potato salad. So how to make each of those look a little bit different and pretty. I mean, potatoes, there's not a lot to them. So you get that really exciting potato salad on a plate. And how are we going to jazz that up for a picture? It was a challenge.
Exactly. The interesting thing about when you look at a picture of a food, think of a Burger King burger. When somebody sees that photo, you need to have them feel like they can taste it and they can smell it and they are experiencing what it would be like. So there is a lot that you need to convey in that plated food, I've done dog food, you've done potato salad. You can make anything look tempting if you're motivated enough.
I did dog food as well. That's hilarious. Anyway, so with all of these great experiences, eventually in the culinary world, eventually you were invited to be part of a very elite group of women called Les Dames d'Escoffier. Can you tell everybody a little bit about this international organization and the different roles that you've played with them?
Sure. Happy to do that. It's actually a pretty interesting story. Les Dames d'Escoffier was founded in 1976 by Carol Brock, who was the food editor of the Sunday Daily News. And she was a force. And she felt that there was great inequities in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries when it came to women. So she decided that she was going to found an organization of women leaders in food, beverage, and hospitality whose mission, and we would be not-for-profit, whose mission would be education, advocacy, and philanthropy for women. And so she set about gathering up 50 of the most prominent women she could find. There was an induction at the French consulate. And that was the beginning. New York was the first chapter. I'm a member of the New York chapter. We are the largest chapter. And In 5 years, she was able to start 5 other chapters. Fast forward, we are now 43 chapters, 2,400 members in the US, Canada, the United Kingdom, Mexico, and France, and we're working on Tuscany. Each chapter, I know we're excited. Each chapter is a 501c3 not-for-profit. So we have raised millions of dollars in scholarship. Our goal is really to help women in the industry and in the communities achieve the career goals that they want to achieve. So we are there to support, network, and be a resource for women in food, beverage, and hospitality.
That's fantastic. I'm fortunate to be a member in the Philadelphia chapter. Since I've been doing this program this summer, I've interviewed 3 other dames from the Philadelphia chapter. Ellen Yin of Fork and High Street Hospitality, Natanya DeBona, who brings the Dinner en Blanc to Philadelphia and Atlantic City right now, was her first year. They just had the event in Philadelphia with 5,000 people. And Olga Sorzano of Baba's Brew Kombucha. But there are so many fantastic women in the Philadelphia chapter. They actually did a little spin-off post-COVID called Sisterly Love Collection, and their mission is to support, promote, and nurture the next generation of women in the food and hospitality industry. It's a really dynamic group of women and fun to be a part of. So now that you've gone through all of these different experiences and you're president of Madame Descaffier, you're settling in and you have started your own company, totally new, called The Artful Pen. The name alone brings a peace of mind and a little bit of your own world of Zen. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how that is different than any of the other people that are doing this type of work.
Calligraphy, like cooking, is, again, it's all about process, which I've already said. That's what I am about. When I first came across somebody on YouTube, this is 3.5 years ago, and I saw them writing with a pointed pen, which is a nib, and they dipped it into ink, and they were writing very slowly on a piece of paper, and you could hear the nib scratching on the paper as the ink came out, and each stroke up that went up was as thin as a hair, and each stroke that came down was thick and fat and luscious. And I fell in love with calligraphy in that moment. At the time, I was producing cookbooks for Weight Watchers, and I quit. I said, this is it. And so I basically devoted 7 days a week, 8 hours a day to learning how to do calligraphy so that I could become proficient at it. Since it wasn't my first career, I thought I really needed to dive in deep. It is a very Zen experience writing with a pen. You have to be in a very centered, quiet place. Some of my best work is done at 2 and 3 in the morning, because if you're not, your hand shakes and the pen does not lie. So it is wonderful. The community on Instagram, which is where you see all the unbelievable calligraphers around the world, it is a sharing, giving, supportive community. I take classes pretty much every week because to be considered a calligrapher, you need to master at least 5 different scripts. And I just worked on a script that was developed in Italy in the 6th century. I mean, and all of the scripts are beautiful. There's a place for all of them. Many of the calligraphers are also artists. So some people only write. I've gone into watercolors so that I not only do poems and vow commissions and wedding envelopes, but I also do custom holiday cards and birthday cards and whatever anybody wants. You know, sometimes people want a commission which they can put on a wall to signify a special event in their lives. And that's something that calligraphers do also.
Yeah, your work is beautiful. I went on to Instagram to the Artful Pen, and you really have some beautiful posts. And your watercolors are gorgeous too. I noticed the invitation or the place cards for the event coming up in New York for Les Dames Sorcières. Quite beautiful. Makes me want to go. I think I'm going to have to tune in. But anyway, unfortunately we're out of time. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences and the information about your company and the Les Dames organization. It's a magnificent group of women.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Sure. For more information about Deborah, go to, and her beautiful work, go to her website, www.theartfulpen.com. Join me next week. I will be speaking with Leslie Heiner, founder of Work to Ride, a fantastic organization in Philadelphia that helps take kids off the streets and puts them on horseback, a trade-off for working at the Chamonix Equestrian Center barn. Sue will be right back to close out the show. Keep living your dream, ladies.
Action News, celebrating 50 years with AccuWeather.
The heat is on. In 2010, Philadelphia had a record of 55 days at or over 90 degrees. And those scorchers, they're on the rise. In fact, 10 of the 15 hottest summers occurred in the last 2 decades. Thank you for always trusting us to keep you informed.
You're streaming and we're streaming. Get the AccuWeather forecast and severe storm alerts 24/7 on our 6ABC streaming app.
Whether you're just getting started, already well on your way, planning for your future, drafting your vision, growing toward greatness, or finding that dreams really can come true. Whatever your next steps are, we'll be right here with you, just like we have been for 150 years. Start here, grow here, stay here. Penn Community Bank. Here we grow.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live,
The big story on Action News tonight.
plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the show this week. Stay tuned next week for my interview with our brand new Leadership Watch contributor, Tracy Samia. Tracy is the CEO of Lancer Skincare, and she's going to be a weekly contributor to the show. So I'm very thrilled to have her next week. Be sure to visit our website at womentowatch.net for all things related to the show. And thank you, as always, to our producer, Tone, and Sherry for her lifestyle segment. Have a great week, everyone.
We could do a summer party. It's the weather.
Can we do this show outside or on the roof?
Weekdays at 9 on 6ABC.